right, and now we are recording. All right, so thank you all so much for those of you that are tuning in to listen to this interview. My name is Fabian Pavon. I am a co-community leader of the Empower program in Pomona that is in collaboration with the Liberty Hill Foundation and the Latino Roundtable. And we have a mission to overcome barriers to sustainable energy, which is commonly experienced in low income and working class communities of color. And Pomona has one of the highest pollution rates in California, and it is important that we do what we can to support our community. So one of the things that you all can do very easily is sign up for the Empower program at our website, which is latino-latinaroundtable.org/empower. And so what we do with Empower is we review your household needs to help you maximize your savings with the programs that are right for you. And so with the Empower program, we promote low cost or no cost energy efficiency and sustainable programs like free solar panel installations, home improvements, and appliance rebates that meet your basic energy needs and maximize the savings on your utility bills. So that way, we can cut the amount of energy that you use, and we also cut we help cut the amount that you spend on your bills. In addition to determining the possible use of clean, I'm sorry, in addition to all these other programs that we do with utility savings bills, we also determine the possible use of clean vehicles in your area. And so we help with the replacement of your old gas guzzlers, your old gas vehicles, for money that can help you buy a new clean vehicle or electric vehicle. So you can get up to $14,000 towards a new clean energy vehicle. And if you have a car that you no longer use, or if it doesn't pass the smog check, we also have programs for that. And so we can help folks apply to that and help them help have their cars pass the smog test. And so we're doing this program because we want to get closer to environmental justice. We want to see environmental justice. We want to see economic justice in our communities. And so just a little bit about environmental justice. So environmental justice is the fair treatment and meaningful involvement of all people, regardless of race, color, national origin, or income, with respect to the development, implementation, and enforcement of environmental laws, regulations, and policy. This goal will be achieved when everyone enjoys the same degree of protection from environmental and health hazards and equal access to the decision-making process to have a healthy environment in which to live, learn, and work. So there's many folks in our community that are already involved in environmental justice issues in Pomona, also with economic justice issues. So the Latino Roundtable, in collaboration with Liberty Hill and Empower program, we want to start bridging these environmental activists in Pomona. We want to this conversation was already taking place, but we want to be a part of it, and we want to see how we can do our part to bring everybody together and so that we can work towards environmental justice and economic justice. So today I'm proud to announce that we have Juanita Preciado-Becerra. And so Juanita Preciado-Becerra is a 25-year Pomona resident and co-founder of Pomona Environmental Advocacy for Community Health, or PEACH. PEACH strives for a greener, healthier Pomona through community engagement and data-driven decision-making. Currently, Juanita co-chairs the Healthy Eating Active Living workgroup under Pomona's Promise. She is a doctoral student at Claremont Graduate University studying the contribution of urban green space to social-ecological resilience during COVID-19. She was a public health scholar for the She was a public health scholar for the County of Los Angeles Public Health Department in 2015, and the Public Health Fellow for USC's and Children's Hospital of Los Angeles CALEND program in 2016. So thank you so much, Juanita, for joining us today. So I just want to, we can start off with asking you, so what made you want to become an environmental advocate?
Yeah, you know what? It's hard because I don't know. I want to say a lifelong member, but I went to college for a couple years, so I subtracted those years. But Pomona has always been near and dear to my heart. I grew up here. I was a part of the PUSD pipeline. I graduated from Pomona High in 2007. And so I think that, Pomona has a very near and dear place in my heart. And I was fortunate enough to be able to work on a project called Stopping Diabetes in Its Tracks that focused on diabetes in the city and really just the escalating numbers of it. And so one of our professors really tasked us to think about the upstream factors that have led to these unwanted health outcomes. And so one of the things that I was looking into was urban green space. And that with the mentorship of another professor, I started looking into the wide benefits of it. And then I started looking into the city and how we are in we are in a reduced amount of acreage of green space per resident. So I thought, we have to advocate to change this. And that's really what kind of geared me to become an environmental advocate in the city.
Awesome. Thank you very much. So I know a lot of a lot of the work and the research that you do revolves around, how can we make communities greener and healthier, right? So how can you see us, or how do you see us making Pomona greener and healthier?
Yeah, I really think that, if you're asking me the question, I think it's really a three-prong approach, right? So the first is like, we really have to rethink the way that we look at nature in cities. So in the US, there's like the environmental law is really dualistic in the way it thinks about nature. So, and then the way it practices these laws. So you could kind of see it as like the separation between like urban and rural, or town versus country, or human-made versus natural, right? And so you kind of see this, and it plays out in our cities. And so you see like these artificial boundaries between nature and humans. And as we can see from the literature, that this is problematic for our overall well-being and our health, right? This separation of these two, because really what happens to us as humans directly impacts our environment, and what happens to our environment, as we've seen lately, directly impacts us. So we are like linked, we are interconnected. And I think that we have to elevate this thinking collectively, and to understand that, we are linked. Could you imagine a city that was built with that understanding in mind, that humans and nature are inextricably linked? And I think that that's one way that we can get to a healthier and more well-being, or a healthier and more we just want for better well-being for residents, right? So I think that that's one thing that we can actually start working on, is debunking that separation between the two, because we are definitely intertwined. The second thing is we need to diversify what gets defined as green space and who gets to define it, right? I think a lot of times people think of green space as this prototypical park, right? Like this beautiful park that's beautifully landscaped, and which is great, that's one type of green space. But as we've seen, parks don't always kind of yield high activation. There's a lot of variables to park use that sometimes don't always get talked about. So I think that by diversifying what we classify as green space, Pomona has a wealth of community gardens and urban agriculture here. And so I think we could start supporting that type of green space, as it has resulted as a need for a community, right? People decided that they wanted to do this, they got together, they created this. And I think that that's one way that we can start supporting these different types of green space in the city, so that we can make ourselves greener and healthier. Another one too, and these are not in order of importance, because this is a big one, is we have to include the community voice. A lot of times parks and other types of green spaces, they kind of embody a philosophy, right? Like if you go to a park and there's a jungle gym, there's only so much you can do in that space with a jungle gym. You could play on the jungle gym. That's like, it was designed for an action to happen there. And a lot of times, depending on who designs it, that may not be what the community wants to do there, right? It might not fit the need of that local community, and therefore we might see lower rates of use in that park. So I think that you really need to get the community involved at the beginning and really start building that trust so that they feel like they can voice what they need, and therefore their needs are reflected in that green space. I think that that's the three things that we can start doing today that can make Pomona healthier and greener.
Wow, that sounds great. Thank you so much for that. And so how, like, general, I know you kind of spoke a little bit, it's particular to Pomona, but generally, how do you think, we as individuals, how can we improve the environment around us?
Yeah, I think as individuals, the Empower program has a great options for you to start being more environmentally conscious, definitely. And I think that one way that you can start, getting that perspective is by some of those things that I mentioned of collectively understanding that we are linked, but also, for some that's harder to do, right? There's a lot of barriers for some in terms of being able to go out and get nature, because there's not much of it in the city. So I think that one way is just getting involved in simple things, like being outside, getting some fresh air, and within their environment, and start really thinking about how could we work together in tandem with some of these advocacy groups are like Peach, and figure out ways that we can start changing our city. I think that that's one way that we can start building those bridges. And Peach is inclusive, so we invite any resident who wants to learn more and wants to be engaged to come join us in how we want to solve these issues in our city.
Thank you. And so, I'm pretty sure with, the work that you do, and the, and the research that you've been able to do, I'm pretty sure you run into some, or maybe even working with the community or with the city, I'm pretty sure you might run into some challenges here and there. What would you say is the biggest challenge you have faced as an environmental advocate and leader in our community?
Um, Man, I really love this city, and I think that kind of shows. It's transparent, and I think that maybe the hardest part of being an environmental justice advocate is that sometimes you hear a little bit of a pushback, because there is, in the sense, advocating, you have to kind of hold people accountable, right? And I think that that is one of the challenges with being an advocate. And so I draw a lot of strength from the residents that are a part of Peach, and my family, they still live here. And so for me, sometimes, because life is hectic. I have a small child, she's 2 years old, and I work, and there's all these things. Sometimes you kind of just want to hang it up and say, okay, I tried, and let's keep it pushing. But I do draw a lot of strength from fellow residents and the people that I grew up around. And so I do feel like we are little by little making some changes. And so I think that is part of, I think for me, the hardest part of being an environmental justice advocate and an advocate for green space is that you got to keep pushing, no matter what you hear, or no matter, if the answer is no in the beginning, or, that's kind of not aligned with what we want to do. I think that you just kind of have to be persistent. And I think that right now, especially because of all the challenging times everyone is facing, it could get hard as a person, and as many multiple roles that a person might be. So I think just continuously kind of sticking to your vision, and saying, you know what, no, I imagine a greener and healthier city, and so we're going to keep pushing until we get that.
And so, I know you mentioned Peach, and we talked about Peach a little bit.
Yeah.
What kind of projects have you been able to take on as a part of Peach?
Yeah, so with Peach, we were able to kind of put on, I guess, three separate projects. One is an urban harvest. So what we did is, we, on social media, we understood that there's a lot of our partners, specifically Lopez Urban Farm currently, who are doing this market box program. And a lot of, because of the challenges faced by COVID, a lot of families needed additional support. And so what we wanted to do is they would donate some their harvest to these market boxes, but that could only go so far. So we thought, how could we help this effort? And one of the ways that we thought we could help is by supplementing that with like, for example, I was outside and I saw that I had a lemon tree and an orange tree that was bearing fruit. And I thought, well, I'm pretty sure I'm not going to be able to eat all of that myself. So how about we glean it and we donate it to Lopez Urban Farm? And I thought, well, that would be great if like my neighbors did it, right? And then their neighbors did it. And so what we did is we were able to collect about 500 pounds of fresh fruits and vegetables that were locally grown in the city and donate it to Lopez Urban Farm and another emergent food bank that started at a church on the east side of Pomona called Jesus La Roca. So we were able to divvy up and give that out to families with the help of our partners. And so I think that was one of the big things that we did. We also did an environmental assessment back in September of 2019. Because Fabian, you're a Pomona resident, you hear a lot that we need to activate our parks. So then I thought, all right, cool, we need to activate our parks. But then these questions came up like, okay, who do we need to activate? Do we need to activate kids or adults, or like in what park? Do all parks need to be activated or just some? And so I just kind of started thinking like, all right, well let's start getting these answers. And really we didn't have it, like nobody really knew. So I thought, all right, let's figure it out ourselves. So we went out and we did an environmental assessment using observational data and GIS, so geographic information system software. And we were able to create these density maps of all the parks to see who was using it and at different times. So like in the morning, in the afternoon, or on a weekend. And so that way, when we went to like, city officials and we said, in terms of activating parks, seems like some of these are already activated. So we could better strategize what we were doing in terms of you make data-driven decision making, if you will. I think that goes back to our vision. In addition to that, we also geocoded these community gardens and urban farms throughout the city, and we were able to see that there are quite a few that are within our city. And I really started to look at how we could support them, right? Because these were meeting a need for a lot of community residents. So we applied for a grant from the City of Hope and we received it. So we are going to be working with them to better understand how these spaces contribute to resilience during COVID. And we hope to take the results of this research to city officials so that we can start thinking about how could we support these spaces? How could we replicate these spaces in different areas of the community? How can we be, partners with these amazing organizations that are driven by these highly skilled urban farmers? How can we look at that as a huge asset for our city and build off of that? Because that really is what we need to do. We need to build off of what people already are using and take their voice into account.
That's right. I know you mentioned, data-driven decision making, and do you feel that there was, that the decision makers or folks in the city or anything like that, do you feel that that they were making their decisions off of the data, or did you see that need that needed to be filled?
Yeah, we saw the need. I think we definitely saw the need. I'm a doctoral student, and so that's very passionate about urban green space in Pomona. And so of course, we wanted to dive deep and see like what's out there, what can we use to start building some questions on so that we can kind of take us to the next step. And so, we wanted to see some data, what do we have that we can use? And we were running into a lot of like, oh, we don't have it, or no, we're not really. So I thought, okay, well then if we don't have it, let's create it. And we did that with the support of our research institute called CITRI, Community Translational Research Institute. And we were able to kind of create that data, and it's very helpful. It was very helpful to start better understanding what our urban landscape looked like in the city in terms of green space.
And you know what, I want to take a moment to commend you for that, because it's, that's one of the barriers in communities like Pomona, right, where a lot of us are low income, especially in Latino neighborhoods, like Pomona has a large Latino population. A lot of us don't get to the doctoral level of education, right? Very, very few of us, especially mujeres, as well. So I gotta commend you for getting, not forgetting about your community, because it's very easy to, leave the community and go into these spaces that are elite, and or spaces outside of Pomona that are nicer, that will kind of make you not want to come back to Pomona, but so thank you so much for bridging that, using the institution and to benefit the community. So I appreciate you for that. And then I do have a question. I got a question in the chat real quick that I would like to ask you. So Temis asked, is the data that you put together available for the public or organizations?
We're working on that, yes. So ideally what we want to do is we want to create MOUs so that we can share this with our partners. I think and that could be a very process between our advocacy group and whoever would want to work with us. I think that's part of the reason why we created it. And so yeah, just shoot us a message and we could see how we could work with you. It's definitely something that we can work together on. And just to touch back on your point, Fabian, I agree with you 100% in terms of, education is a privilege. And so I did want to leverage some of that privilege to continue to, to help my community. And so I do want to say that I'm very aware that, it definitely is a privilege, and I hope to use it as a tool to make some positive change.
Thank you so much. Oh, we could work together with.
Oh, let's do it. Let's do it. Let's do it. I'm all for it.
Definitely. And so I know so you're part of the healthy eating active living work group under Pomona's
Yes.
Promise. So can you tell us a little bit about that? Like, first of all, what is Pomona's Promise?
Yeah, so Pomona's Promise is a collective impact initiative that's comprised of 5 key components, and it's education, economic development, community safety, community engagement, and health. So these 5 different domains. What we do is we bring community partners together within those domains, and we strive to create initiatives that could impact the quality of life for Pomona residents. Um, we are always actively seeking resident engagement. So we really want, them at the table to help us decide on what these initiatives will be. And so, yeah, for us specifically, Healthy Eating, Active Living, we work under the umbrella of Healthy in Pomona. That's co-chaired by Tony Navarro, which is the CEO of Tri-City. Is the CEO or the executive director, but she runs, she's the director of Tri-City, and Lucy Leon Groom, who's also a Pomona ally and who's worked in the Stopping Diabetes project, and currently is a doctoral student. So right now she's managing the Healthy in Pomona and along with Tony. And so under that group is Healthy Eating, Active Living, that specifically works within as how do we do those things? How do we facilitate healthy eating and active living in the city of Pomona? And so we have, organizational representation from like Western University and East Valley and Pomona Valley Hospital. And so we have these big institutions, but what we really want is resident involvement. So so that we can work in tandem in developing these initiatives. So yeah, if we always encourage people to come through and voice their input. And I think that's one way that anybody could be an environmental advocate. Back to the question you asked me is to reach out and let's get involved in making some positive change for the city. So
Definitely. Awesome. And so I'm sure you're aware, there's been more and more studies showing, the limited time we have left, on this earth before we can, reverse the effects of that come with climate change. So, how do you feel about those studies?
Man, I think it goes back to that point of rethinking our relationship with the environment. It's just, we are so, linked. What happens to our environment directly impacts us and our future here on this planet. So I think that when we think we only have so much time left, we really got to start making a move and start rethinking our relationship with nature. And I think that comes, it really is difficult, to because you've been shown this kind of narrative for so long, and then all of a sudden you're gonna have to switch it up. And I think that it's a task. We have to start reframing and have the mental flexibility to start thinking about nature differently. And so I think that part of it is, definitely we have to start reframing that the way we think about it. And I think that in itself will start, beliefs, attitudes, perceptions, that starts influencing policy. That's how we start, making change at a higher level. But until, we start thinking about the nature as part of us and us a part of nature, it's going to be difficult to start getting, people's actions to happen at a higher level. So I do think, grassroots, a lot of the programs that, Empower 909 Empower and Peach does, and healthy eating, we're trying to really push that, to debunk the narrative that we're not a part of nature. We really have to start coming together in the way we think about it. So that's how we're working on it at this level.
Definitely, definitely. And so, just going back to like the work that you've been able to do with Peach and everything, um, have you, like, how have you been able to engage with the community even now, with COVID, makes it a little bit difficult. Have you been able to continue to engage with the community?
You know, it's become a challenge, but our partners are still out there, and they're still, doing great work. I think about all of the urban farmers that they're continuing, you know doing it. They're doing it, and they're doing it for their community. And so I know that, by reaching out to them, it kind of, it, it's like a lifeline, really, because it's like you see people out there doing the work and showing up. And so in terms of being able to contact them, I know where I could find them. They're in their urban farm, or they're in their community garden, and they're working, hard there. And so I think that, with that, just continuously trying to stay connected, either through social media, or through text messages, or through Zoom calls, and because we're outside, these places are outside, we could safely visit with the proper precautions of keeping, your mask on, and staying 6 feet apart. So I think that that is one way that we're still managing to stay connected. But it is difficult. It is a new challenge, but we're working through it.
Definitely, definitely. Well, thank you so much for all the work that you do and the time that you made for us. Before we call it a day, is there anything else you would like to share with us?
No, just thank you for the work that you guys do. And of course, we are always looking for ways to collaborate and work together. And so if you guys have any ideas of how we can do that, I'm always open for that. I understand that, we have to work collectively to make it the bigger impact. So I lend myself to whatever you guys wanna start working on. Any initiatives, just let me know.
Sounds good. Thank you so much, Juanita. I'll be sure to reach out to you and we can continue these conversations and we can continue working for our communities. Thank
All
you
right.
so much.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. Have a good one. Well, thank you all so much for joining us today. We had Juanita today for our Bridging Environmental Advocacy. And here in Pomona. And so again, my name is Fabian Pavon. I'm one of the key co-lead organizers for the Empower program. And for those of you that, want to do your part, you could definitely sign up for the Empower program, so that way we can help you reduce the amount of energy that you use within your home. And hopefully, if you're looking for a new vehicle, hopefully we can help you get your old gas guzzler out of the road and replaced with an electric vehicle, so that way we can reduce our carbon emissions, everybody. So if you're interested in seeing what benefits you qualify for through the Empower program, please feel free to fill out our intake form and we'll follow up with you. You can find the intake form at latinoroundtable.org/empower. Thank you all so much and have a wonderful day.